First Contact Cuisine. The Galactic Culinary Institute's grand opening was supposed to be a momentous occasion. Situated on a space station orbiting a neutral world, it represented humanity's first major contribution to interstellar culture since achieving faster-than-light travel. Chef Marcus Chen stood proudly at the entrance, watching as alien dignitaries from a dozen different species filed into the state-of-the-art teaching kitchen. Welcome, honored guests, to a new era of intergalactic gastronomy, Marcus announced, his voice barely containing his excitement. The aliens, a colorful assortment of beings with various appendages, sensory organs, and dermal textures, chittered, clicked, and burbled in response. Their universal translators conveyed a mix of curiosity and trepidation. A tall, willowy being with iridescent skin stepped forward. Greetings, Chef Chen. I am Ambassador Zixlith of the Quarian Confederation. We are cautiously optimistic about this cultural exchange. Marcus beamed. I assure you, Ambassador, Earth cuisine is renowned for its diversity and flavor. We've prepared a special introductory menu that should appeal to a wide range of palates. As the group entered the kitchen, Marcus couldn't help but notice the way some of the aliens recoiled at the various aromas wafting through the air. He made a mental note to adjust the ventilation system. Clearly, some species had more sensitive olfactory organs than humans. Today, Marcus continued, we'll be starting with something very simple and mild. A classic tomato basil soup. He began demonstrating the recipe, carefully explaining each step to his attentive audience. The aliens watched with a mix of fascination and growing unease as Marcus added what seemed to them like an alarming number of ingredients to the pot. Now for a little seasoning, Marcus said, reaching for a small container. Just a pinch of black pepper to enhance the flavors. The moment he removed the lid from the pepper shaker, chaos erupted. Ambassador Zixlith let out a piercing shriek, their iridescent skin flashing warning colors. By the cosmic void, what is that foul substance? Other aliens began backing away, some covering their sensory organs, others making sounds that the translators struggled to interpret but seemed to convey extreme distress. Marcus froze, pepper shaker still in hand. It's just ground peppercorns. It's a very common spice on Earth. A squat, reptilian being named Gruckmar hissed. Common. That scent could incapacitate an entire platoon of Zarkonian shock troops. Confusion and alarm spread through the kitchen as the aliens retreated from what they perceived as a chemical attack. Marcus tried to calm the situation, but his words fell on deaf or non-existent ears. Please, everyone, remain calm. It's completely harmless to humans. We use it every day. This statement, meant to reassure, only seemed to horrify the aliens further. A gelatinous being near the back of the room began to lose cohesion, its form quivering uncontrollably. Ambassador Zixlith, who had managed to regain some composure, fixed Marcus with all four of their eyes. Chef Chen, we were led to believe this would be a safe and educational experience. Instead, you've exposed us to a substance that, by your own admission, humans use as some sort of daily endurance ritual. Marcus struggled to find words. No, you misunderstand. It's not a ritual, it's just flavor. Flavor, squawked a avian creature. That's not flavor, it's sensory assault. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. Aliens were fleeing the kitchen, some calling for their ships, others demanding to speak with human diplomatic representatives immediately. In the midst of the chaos, Marcus's human assistant, Aisha, entered the kitchen. She took one look at the scene. Aliens in various states of panic, Marcus standing dumbfounded with a pepper shaker and the pot of soup bubbling innocently on the stove, and quickly assessed the situation. Chef, she said calmly, I think we may need to recalibrate our definition of mild. Marcus nodded weakly, still trying to process what had just happened. Aisha, I think we may have just caused an interstellar incident with a pinch of black pepper. As the last of the aliens evacuated the kitchen, Alarms began to sound throughout the station. The Galactic Culinary Institute's grand opening had turned into a diplomatic nightmare, all because of a spice humans considered utterly mundane. In the following hours, as human diplomats scrambled to smooth things over and xenobiologists rushed to understand why black pepper had such a profound effect on alien physiology, Marcus sat in his office, head in his hands. "All those years of training," he muttered, "all the careful planning and cultural sensitivity workshops. And it all goes out the airlock because I wanted to season a soup." Aisha patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Look on the bright side, chef. At least you didn't try to serve them anything with chili peppers." Marcus groaned at the thought. "Don't even joke about that. We'd probably have started an interstellar war." As news of the pepper incident spread across human and alien networks, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity's first major foray into galactic culture had hit an unexpected and volatile snag. The question on everyone's minds, human and alien alike, was simple: where do we go from here? Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a culinary and cultural adventure that would reshape the very fabric of galactic society. The humans, with their insane tolerance for what the rest of the galaxy considered chemical weapons, were about to turn the cosmic order upside down, one spice at a time. The spice must flow. In the days following the disastrous opening of the Galactic Culinary Institute, the human diplomatic corps worked overtime to contain the fallout. Emergency meetings were called, formal apologies were issued, and a flurry of xenobiological research was commissioned to understand why Earth's spices had such a profound effect on alien physiology. Meanwhile, on Earth, the public reaction was a mix of concern, confusion, and in some quarters, amusement. Social media exploded with memes about weaponized pepper and jokes about conquering the galaxy with garlic bread. But for those in charge of humanity's galactic relations, the situation was far from funny. Admiral Helena Ortiz, head of the United Earth Space Force's Diplomatic Division, paced her office on Luna Base, her holographic displays filled with reports and news feeds from across known space. "So let me get this straight," she said to the assembled team of diplomats and xenobiologists. "Not only is black pepper considered a dangerous substance by most galactic species, but nearly everything in a typical Earth spice rack could be classified as a chemical weapon." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the lead xenobiologist, nodded grimly. "That's correct, Admiral. Our initial findings suggest that the majority of alien species have sensory systems far more sensitive than our own. What we consider mild seasoning, they experience as overwhelming, even painful." Helena pinched the bridge of her nose. "And nobody thought to check this before we opened a damn cooking school." A young diplomat cleared his throat nervously. "To be fair, Admiral, we did conduct extensive research on alien nutritional needs and potential allergens. But spices, well, it simply didn't occur to anyone that they could be an issue." "Wonderful," Helena muttered. "So we've essentially been walking around the galaxy carrying the equivalent of pepper spray in our lunchboxes." As the meeting continued, discussing strategies for damage control and future precautions, a priority message flashed across Helena's personal comlink. Her eyes widened as she read it. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, interrupting the ongoing debate about whether to ban all Earth spices in extraterrestrial environments, "we have a new problem. The Galactic Council has just classified all Earth-origin spices and seasonings as controlled substances. Effective immediately, any ship or individual found in possession of these materials outside of human-controlled space will face severe penalties." The room erupted in a cacophony of protests and exclamations. Helena raised her hand for silence. "That's not all," she continued. "They're also demanding that we shut down all human-run restaurants and food-related businesses in neutral and alien-controlled territories. They're citing public safety concerns." Dr. Tanaka looked aghast. "But that's thousands of establishments. The culinary sector is one of our biggest non-military contributions to galactic society." Helena nodded grimly. "Exactly. And I have a feeling that's part of the point." Some factions within the Council have never been comfortable with how quickly humanity has expanded its influence. This spice scare is providing them with a perfect excuse to check our cultural and economic growth. As the implications sank in, a tense silence fell over the room. Humanity had worked hard to establish itself as a valuable member of the galactic community, and now all of that progress was in jeopardy because of a pinch of pepper. "So what do we do?" someone finally asked. Helena's expression hardened with determination. "We fight back. Not with weapons, but with diplomacy, science, and if necessary, a bit of good old human ingenuity. I refuse to let humanity be sidelined over something as ridiculous as this." She turned to Dr. Tanaka. "Yuki, I want your team to dive deep into this. Find out exactly why our spices affect aliens the way they do, and more importantly, see if there's any way we can mitigate those effects without losing the flavors we value." To the diplomats, she said, "I need you to reach out to our allies. There are species out there who've had more positive experiences with human cuisine. Remind them of the benefits of cultural exchange, and start working on proposals for compromise, regulated spice zones, warning labels, whatever it takes." Finally, she addressed the whole room. "This isn't just about food, people. This is about humanity's place in the galaxy. If we back down now, we'll be seen as a threat or a liability. But if we can turn this around, find a way to bridge this dietary divide, we'll prove once and for all that we belong out here among the stars." As the meeting adjourned and her team rushed off to tackle their new assignments, Helena turned to look out the window at the Earth hanging in the black sky. She couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. "To think," she mused, "after all our worries about first contact, all our preparations for cosmic threats, humanity's greatest challenge turns out to be convincing the galaxy that our food isn't toxic." Little did Admiral Ortiz know, but her words would prove prophetic. The Great Spice Controversy was about to escalate in ways nobody could have predicted, testing humanity's diplomacy, scientific prowess, and culinary creativity to their very limits. Across the galaxy, in the corridors of power and the bustling spaceports of 1,000 worlds, rumors began to spread. Humans, the newcomers from that strange, hostile planet called Earth, didn't just tolerate toxic substances, they enjoyed them. They deliberately sought out chemicals that could incapacitate other species, ingesting them for pleasure. Some dismissed these tales as xenophobic fearmongering. Others began to look at their human neighbors with new wariness. And in hidden laboratories and secret government facilities, research into human physiology took on a new urgency. What made these Deathworlders so different? What other surprises might they be hiding? And most importantly, how could the rest of the galaxy ensure its safety in the face of a species that treated interstellar incidents as condiments? As panic and curiosity spread in equal measure, humanity found itself at a crossroads. Their next moves would determine not just the future of human cuisine in space, but potentially the course of galactic history itself. In the kitchen of the now-shuttered Galactic Culinary Institute, Chef Marcus Chen stood alone, staring at the spice rack that had caused so much trouble. He picked up the pepper grinder, turning it over in his hands thoughtfully. "There has to be a way," he murmured. "Food brings people together. It always has. We just need to find the right recipe." With renewed determination, Marcus began to experiment. If humans and aliens couldn't share the same seasonings, perhaps he could find a middle ground. Flavors that would appeal to both without overwhelming alien senses. As he worked, he didn't realize that his quest to create the perfect cross-species cuisine would soon become central to humanity's efforts to maintain its place among the stars. The fate of diplomatic relations, cultural exchange, and perhaps even galactic peace itself would rest on the contents of his pots and pans. The spice must flow, as an old Earth saying went. But first, humanity had to convince the galaxy that this flow wasn't a threat to cosmic harmony, and that was going to take all the skill, charm, and out-of-the-box thinking they could muster. Cultural exchange gone wrong. As the galactic spice crisis entered its third week, tensions between humans and various alien species continued to escalate. Despite the best efforts of diplomats and scientists, misunderstandings and misinformation spread faster than factual reports. The human habit of casually consuming what other species considered dangerous substances had sparked a wave of panic across numerous worlds. On the bustling trade hub of Nexus Station, human restaurant owner Samantha Rodriguez found herself at the center of the storm. Her establishment, Taste of Earth, had been a popular spot for adventurous aliens looking to sample exotic human cuisine. Now it sat empty, its windows plastered with official warnings about the potential dangers of Earth-origin foods. Samantha stood behind her bar, absently polishing a glass as she watched the diverse crowd outside hurry past, carefully avoiding eye contact with her or her restaurant's signage. The few humans on the station nodded sympathetically as they passed, but they too kept their distance, wary of being associated with the controversial eatery. "This is ridiculous," Samantha muttered to herself. 3 years I've been serving aliens without incident, and now suddenly I'm treated like I'm running some kind of poison den. Her musings were interrupted by the chime of the door. Samantha looked up, hope flaring briefly before being replaced by caution. It wasn't a customer, but Grix, her Valaxian supplier of off-world produce. "Grix," Samantha greeted the insectoid alien warily. "I wasn't expecting a delivery, especially not with the new regulations." The Valaxian's antennae twitched nervously. "No delivery, Samantha friend. I come with warning. Troublemakers in station. They speak of teaching humans lesson about dangerous foods. You should close early today." Samantha's eyes narrowed. "Close early? Grix, I've barely had a customer all week. If this keeps up, I'll have to close permanently." Grix's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with sympathy. "I understand, yes, but safety more important than profit. These troublemakers, they not understand human ways. They only know fear." As if on cue, a commotion erupted outside. A group of aliens from various species had gathered, holding crude signs with slogans like, "No more poison food," and "Humans go home." Their angry shouts were beginning to draw a crowd. Samantha felt a mix of fear and indignation rising within her. "This is insane," she said, moving towards the door. "I need to talk to them. Explain that there's been a misunderstanding." Grix reached out with a multi-jointed limb to stop her. "No, Samantha. Friend. Is too dangerous. They not listen to reason now." But Samantha was already moving, her frustration overriding her caution. She stepped out of her restaurant, the door chiming behind her as Grix chittered anxiously. "Excuse me," Samantha called out to the protesters, trying to keep her voice calm and friendly. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "I'd be happy to explain." "Misunderstanding?" A bulbous, gelatinous alien at the front of the group burbled angrily. "The only misunderstanding was allowing your kind to peddle your toxic substances in our community." Samantha held up her hands placatingly. "Please, let me explain. The spices we use aren't toxic to humans. They're just flavoring. We've been sharing meals with many of your species for years without any problems." A serpentine alien with iridescent scales hissed. "Without problems? What about the pepper incident? What about the reports of aliens being incapacitated by your so-called mild foods?" "That was an isolated incident," Samantha argued, feeling her patience wearing thin. "And those reports are greatly exaggerated. Look, why don't you all come inside? I can show you our kitchen, explain our ingredients. Enter your poison den," the gelatinous alien exclaimed. "Do you take us for fools?" The crowd was growing larger and more agitated. Samantha could see station security officers starting to take notice in the distance. This was quickly spiraling out of control. In a desperate attempt to defuse the situation, Samantha had an idea. "Wait here," she said, holding up a hand. "I'll bring out some samples. Completely spice-free. You can see for yourselves that our food isn't dangerous." Before anyone could object, She ducked back into the restaurant. Grix was waiting just inside, antennae twitching nervously. "Samantha, friend, this not wise," the Valaxian warned. "I know, Grix," Samantha replied as she hurried to the kitchen. "But I have to try something. If I can just get them to taste some normal, unspiced human food, maybe they'll realize this whole thing is blown out of proportion." She quickly gathered a tray of various earth fruits and vegetables. Apples, carrots, celery sticks, and slices of cucumber. All completely natural, without any seasoning or processing. Surely this would be safe and inoffensive to even the most sensitive alien palate. As Samantha re-emerged from the restaurant with her tray of peace offerings, she was met with suspicious glares from the assembled aliens. "See," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "Just plain fruits and vegetables. No spices, no additives. Completely natural and safe. Who would like to try some?" There was a moment of tense silence. Then, surprisingly, the serpentine alien slithered forward, tongue flicking out to taste the air. "I will sample your offerings," it declared, fixing Samantha with its unblinking gaze. "But be warned, human. Any trickery will be met with severe consequences." Samantha nodded, relief washing over her. "Of course. Thank you for being open-minded. Here, why don't you try a slice of apple? It's sweet and crisp, very refreshing." The alien delicately took the apple slice with its prehensile tail. The crowd watched in tense silence as it brought the fruit to its mouth and took a small bite. For a moment, nothing happened. Samantha allowed herself to hope that this might actually work. Then, suddenly, the alien's eyes widened in shock. "By the cosmic egg," it shrieked, its scales flashing in alarming patterns. "It burns. The acid. You've poisoned me." Chaos erupted. The alien writhed dramatically, spitting out the apple. The crowd surged forward, some rushing to aid their fallen comrade, others advancing menacingly on Samantha. "Wait," Samantha cried, backing away in confusion and alarm. "It's just an apple. There's nothing dangerous in it." But her protests fell on deaf ears, or whatever passed for ears among the various alien species present. The situation had escalated beyond reason. As the angry mob pressed closer, station security finally arrived on the scene. Amidst the chaos of shouting aliens, bewildered officers, and flying fruit, Samantha found herself being ushered back into her restaurant by a concerned Grix. "I don't understand," Samantha said, watching through the window as security tried to disperse the crowd. "It was just a normal apple. How could it have caused such a reaction?" Grix's antennae drooped sadly. "Oh, Samantha, friend, you forget. What is normal for humans, often very strange for others. Apple has acid, yes. Malic acid, citric acid. For some species, this like bathing in corrosive substance." Samantha's eyes widened in horror as the realization sank in. In her eagerness to prove human food was safe, she had inadvertently caused exactly the kind of incident she was trying to prevent. As she watched security escorting the still dramatically writhing serpentine alien away on a stretcher, Samantha knew that this apple incident would only add fuel to the already raging fire of anti-human sentiment. "What have I done?" she whispered, slumping against the bar. Grix patted her shoulder awkwardly with a spindly limb. "You try to help, Samantha, friend. But sometimes, good intentions not enough. Galaxy very big, very different. What's safe for one, dangerous for another." Outside, the last of the protesters were being dispersed. But Samantha knew this was far from over. News of this latest attack would spread quickly, further damaging human-alien relations. As she surveyed her empty restaurant, the realization hit her. This wasn't just about her business anymore. This misunderstanding, this clash of biologies and cultures, had the potential to undo years of progress in human-alien relations. Samantha straightened up, a determined look in her eyes. "We need to fix this, Grix. Not just for my restaurant, but for all of us, humans and aliens. There has to be a way to bridge this gap, to help everyone understand each other better." Grix's antennae perked up slightly. You have plan, Samantha friend. Samantha nodded slowly, an idea forming. I think I do. But it's going to take more than just me. We're going to need help. From humans, from aliens, from anyone who believes that our differences shouldn't divide us. As she began to outline her plan to Grix, Samantha didn't realize that her small act of desperation on Nexus Station was about to spark a movement that would ripple across the galaxy. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with misunderstandings, setbacks, and surprises. But it would also lead to one of the greatest adventures in cultural exchange the galaxy had ever seen. The stage was set for a culinary revolution that would test the limits of diplomacy, science, and the universal desire for a good meal. And at the center of it all was a human restaurant owner who refused to give up on the idea that food could bring people and aliens together. The Great Taste Test. In the wake of the Apple incident on Nexus Station, tensions between humans and aliens reached a boiling point. Across the galaxy, human-run restaurants were shuttered, trade in Earth-origin foods ground to a halt, and diplomatic relations grew increasingly strained. It seemed that humanity's place in the galactic community hung by a thread, all because of irreconcilable dietary differences. But Samantha Rodriguez refused to accept defeat. In the days following the disastrous attempt to share Earth fruits with alien protesters, she had been working tirelessly on a plan. A plan that, if successful, could bridge the gap between human and alien palates and potentially save interstellar relations. It's insane, Admiral Helena Ortiz said, staring at Samantha through the holographic display. You want to host a galactic cooking competition. After everything that's happened. Samantha nodded firmly. Not just a competition, Admiral. A cultural exchange. A chance for humans and aliens to come together, to learn about each other's foods in a controlled scientific environment. We're calling it the Great Taste Test. Helena pinched the bridge of her nose, a gesture Samantha was becoming familiar with. And how exactly do you propose to prevent another incident? We can't risk any more aliens being poisoned by our food. Accidental or not. That's where the science comes in, Samantha explained eagerly. We've partnered with xenobiologists, chemists, and culinary experts from a dozen different species. Every dish will be thoroughly analyzed before anyone tastes it. We'll have medical teams standing by, and every participant will undergo a full health screening. The Admiral's expression remained skeptical, but Samantha could see a glimmer of interest in her eyes. It's a big risk, Helena said slowly. If anything goes wrong, it could be the final straw for our galactic relations. But if it works, Samantha countered, it could be the breakthrough we need. A chance to show the galaxy that our differences can bring us together instead of driving us apart. There was a long pause as Helena considered the proposal. Finally, she let out a long sigh. All right, Rodriguez. You have my support. But I want every precaution taken, understood? This has to be perfect. Samantha's face broke into a wide grin. Thank you, Admiral. You won't regret this. As the holographic display winked out, Samantha turned to the diverse group assembled in her restaurant. Grix the Valaxian was there, along with Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the xenobiologist from Luna Base, and representatives from several alien species who had been sympathetic to the human cause. Well, Samantha said, clapping her hands together, we've got a lot of work to do. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Nexus Station, chosen as the neutral ground for the event, was transformed. The main promenade became a showcase of culinary cultures from across the galaxy. Cooking stations were set up, each equipped with specialized gear to handle the unique requirements of different species' foods. Security was tight, with every ingredient thoroughly scanned and analyzed before being allowed onto the station. Medical bays were prepped to handle any possible reaction from any known species. The air itself was carefully filtered to prevent cross-contamination of aromas that might be pleasant to one species but overwhelming to another. As the day of the Great Taste Test dawned, Samantha stood at the entrance to the promenade. watching as delegates from dozens of worlds filed in. There was an air of tense excitement, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Ready for this?" Dr. Tanaka asked, coming to stand beside her. Samantha took a deep breath. "As ready as we'll ever be. Let's hope this works." The event began with a series of presentations, each species explaining the basics of their culinary culture. Humans went first, with Chef Marcus Chen giving a carefully worded explanation of Earth's diverse cuisines, emphasizing the cultural importance of spices while acknowledging the need for caution when sharing with other species. Other presentations followed. The gelatinous blorbs described their diet of nutrient-rich slimes, each with its own subtle electrical charge for flavor. The crystalline Sixlith explained how they absorbed minerals in specific combinations to create what they considered taste. With each presentation, the attendees' understanding grew, as did their appreciation for the incredible diversity of life in the galaxy. Then came the moment of truth. The tasting began. It started small, with tiny samples of the most basic, neutral foods from each world. Humans offered plain rice and unseasoned vegetable broths. The Valaxians presented nutrient capsules that dissolved on the tongue. The arachnoids brought protein strands that could be absorbed through the skin. At each station, scientists monitored the reactions of tasters, ready to intervene at the slightest sign of distress. But as the event progressed, something remarkable began to happen. There were no dramatic reactions, no allergic responses, no accusations of poisoning. Instead, there was curiosity, interest, even enjoyment. A blorb was seen quivering with delight after tasting a small spoonful of plain yogurt. A human let out a surprised laugh when a Sixlith mineral compound created a fizzing sensation on her tongue. The Tisket protein strands proved unexpectedly popular among several mammalian species. As the initial wariness faded, participants began to grow bolder. Humans cautiously sampled alien delicacies, while aliens gingerly tried more complex Earth foods. There were, of course, some mismatches. More than one human turned green after sampling blorb slime, and a Sixlith went into a brief hibernation state after tasting lemon juice. But overall, the atmosphere was one of discovery and growing understanding. Midway through the event, Samantha found herself at the human cooking station, where Marcus was carefully preparing small samples of mildly spiced dishes. "How's it going?" she asked anxiously. Marcus grinned. "Better than we could have hoped. Watch this." He turned to a nearby Valaxian, who was eyeing the cooking station with a mix of fear and fascination. "Would you like to try something, friend? I promise, it's been cleared by your scientists as safe for your species." The Valaxian's antennae twitched nervously, but it stepped forward. I will try," it said hesitantly. Marcus nodded encouragingly and offered a tiny spoonful of a pale sauce. "This is what we call a bechamel. It's very mild, just milk, flour, and a touch of nutmeg." The Valaxian extended a delicate sensory appendage and dipped it into the sauce. For a moment, it stood perfectly still, processing the new sensation. Then, to Samantha's amazement, its antennae began to wave in what she recognized as a gesture of pleasure. This is not unpleasant," the Valaxian said, sounding surprised. "It is creamy? Yes, I believe that is the word. And there is a subtle complexity I do not understand, but find intriguing." Marcus beamed. "That's the nutmeg. I'm glad you enjoyed it." As the Valaxian moved on, chattering excitedly to its companions, Samantha felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "It's working," she breathed. "It's actually working." All around the promenade, similar scenes were playing out. Aliens were discovering that not all human food was overwhelmingly spicy. Humans were learning that alien cuisines, while often strange, could be delicious in their own right. Everywhere, barriers were breaking down, replaced by shared enjoyment and growing understanding. As the event wound down, Samantha found herself approached by Ambassador Sixlith, the same dignitary who had been so offended at the original Galactic Culinary Institute opening. "Ms. Rodriguez, the ambassador said, their iridescent skin shimmering with what Samantha hoped were pleasant colors. "I must commend you on this event. It has been enlightening." Samantha smiled cautiously. "Thank you, Ambassador. I hope it's helped to clarify some of the misunderstandings between our species." Zixlith's 4 eyes blinked in unison. "Indeed it has. While I still find many of your foods too intense for my personal taste, I now understand that this is a matter of biology, not malice. And I must admit, your species' ability to create such a wide range of flavors is impressive." As Samantha chatted with the ambassador, she couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. The Great Taste Test hadn't solved all their problems, but it had opened a door. It had shown that, with patience, creativity, and a willingness to understand each other, humans and aliens could find common ground, even in something as fundamental as food. As the last of the participants filed out, already excitedly discussing plans for future cultural exchanges, Samantha knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more misunderstandings to navigate. But they had taken a crucial first step. In kitchens and laboratories across the galaxy, inspired by the events on Nexus Station, a new era of culinary diplomacy was about to begin. And at the heart of it all was the simple, powerful idea that had driven Samantha from the start, that sharing a meal could be the first step to sharing the universe. A new flavor of diplomacy. In the months following the Great Taste Test, the ripple effects of the events spread across the galaxy. What had started as a desperate attempt to salvage human-alien relations had blossomed into a full-fledged cultural phenomenon. The success of the event had not only eased tensions but had sparked a wave of curiosity and innovation that was reshaping interstellar gastronomy. On Earth, alien cuisines. On Earth, alien cuisines became the latest culinary trend. Restaurants specializing in bored slimes and Zixlith mineral compounds sprang up in major cities. Cooking shows featured chefs attempting to recreate Tisket protein strands or Valaxian nutrient capsules. Grocery stores began stocking exotic extraterrestrial ingredients, each carefully labeled with compatibility warnings for different species. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the demand for human foods, suitably modified for alien consumption, skyrocketed. Samantha's restaurant on Nexus Station, once on the brink of closure, now had lines stretching around the promenade. She had expanded her menu to include xenocompatible versions of Earth classics, each dish a careful balance of human flavors and alien sensitivities. But the changes went far beyond mere cuisine. The Great Taste Test had opened new avenues for diplomacy and cultural exchange. Governments and corporations alike were quick to recognize the potential of what was being called culinary diplomacy. Admiral Helena Ortiz found herself busier than ever, coordinating joint research projects between human and alien scientists. They were exploring everything from the biochemistry of taste perception to the development of universal food synthesizers that could cater to any species' dietary needs. "I never thought I'd say this," Helena remarked during a video call with Samantha, "but food might just be humanity's greatest contribution to galactic peace." Samantha laughed, shaking her head in amazement. Who would have thought that a pinch of pepper could lead to all this? But not everyone was thrilled with these developments. As human influence spread through the medium of food, some alien factions began to voice concerns about cultural contamination. They feared that traditional alien cuisines would be overwhelmed by the allure of exotic human flavors. On the human side, there were those who worried about the long-term effects of modifying Earth foods to suit alien palates. Would humanity lose touch with its own culinary heritage in the rush to make everything xenocompatible? These concerns came to a head at the first Galactic Culinary Summit, held 1 year after the Great Taste Test. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on a neutral space station to discuss the future of interstellar gastronomy. Samantha found herself invited as a keynote speaker, much to her surprise. As she stood at the podium, facing an audience of diverse beings from across the galaxy, she felt the weight of the moment. Friends, colleagues, beings of all species, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. A year ago, we stood on the brink of a diplomatic crisis, all because of a simple misunderstanding about food. Today, we gather not in fear or suspicion, but in celebration of our differences and the joy of discovery. She paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces, some familiar, some still strange to her eyes. But as we move forward in this new era of culinary exchange, we must be mindful. Our goal should not be to erase our differences or to create a bland, universal cuisine that offends no one and excites no one. Instead, we must strive to understand and appreciate the unique flavors that each of our cultures brings to the galactic table. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. Samantha continued, her confidence growing. I propose that we establish guidelines for responsible culinary exchange. Let us create dishes that honor both the source culture and the biology of those who will consume them. Let us invest in education so that every being can make informed choices about what they eat. And above all, let us remember that the joy of a shared meal transcends species and star systems. As Samantha concluded her speech, the chamber erupted in a cacophony of applause, trills, clicks, and other alien sounds of approval. Even those who had come with concerns found themselves swayed by her vision of a galaxy united by food. In the days that followed, the summit produced a series of landmark agreements. The Galactic Culinary Exchange Program was established, promoting chef exchanges between different worlds. A standard system for labeling and categorizing foods for cross-species consumption was developed. Funds were allocated for the creation of culinary institutes on multiple planets, each dedicated to exploring the intersection of different species' cuisines. As the summit drew to a close, Samantha found herself approached by a familiar face, or rather, a familiar gelatinous form. It was the Blor who had been so offended by human food during the protest outside her restaurant, all those months ago. Greetings, Samantha of Earth. The Blor burbled. Its surface rippling in what she had learned was a gesture of respect. I owe you an apology. I was wrong to judge your species' cuisine so harshly without understanding. Samantha smiled warmly. No apology necessary, friend. We've all learned a lot since then. The Blord quivered in agreement. Indeed. In fact, I have developed quite a fondness for what you call smoothies. The variety of textures is most intriguing. Laughing, Samantha replied. And I've found that Blorb slimes make excellent thickeners for soups. Who would have thought? As they chatted, Samantha couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. From a disastrous first contact to a galaxy-wide culinary revolution, all because humans had a peculiar tolerance for spicy foods. In the years that followed, the galaxy would face many more challenges. There would be misunderstandings, conflicts, and crises yet to come. But increasingly, when tensions rose and communication broke down, diplomats and leaders would turn to a new solution: breaking bread together, or whatever the equivalent was for the species involved. Restaurants like Samantha's became more than just places to eat. They were neutral grounds where beings from different worlds could come together, share a meal, and remember that despite their differences, they all shared the universal experiences of hunger and the pleasure of a good meal. And on Earth, as humans continued to explore the stars and encounter new civilizations, they carried with them not just spaceships and advanced technology, but also a secret weapon that had proven more powerful than any ray gun or battle cruiser: the humble spice rack. For in learning to share their food with the galaxy, humanity had discovered a fundamental truth: that the quickest way to bridge the gap between cultures, whether they were separated by oceans or light years, was through the universal language of flavor. As Samantha looked out at the diverse crowd mingling at the summit's closing reception, sharing foods and stories from 100 different worlds, she smiled to herself. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but in that moment, it felt just a little bit smaller, a little bit friendlier, and a whole lot more delicious. The great spice crisis that had once threatened to derail humanity's place in the galactic community had instead become the catalyst for a new age of understanding and cooperation. And it had all started with a simple idea that even in the vast, strange expanse of the cosmos, there was nothing quite like the power of a shared meal to bring people and aliens together.